Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Super2. Joining me today is...
The Geek for Fun.
And Steve.
So Alfie picked our review topic tonight. What are we talking about, sir?
Tonight we are talking about the first 5 issues, aka the first arc of Chip Zdarsky's Captain America run, which is an ongoing run, but as most comic book runs are formatted these days, the first arc is meant to be kind of like an isolated story that can be continued later, but it's basically meant to be like a new origin point for Captain America in the modern day. We do these now and again. I'm sure Steve is familiar where every time we have to kind of update Captain America, he's unfrozen at a later point in time, and this seems to be the 2020s version of that. There's another character in this that's prominent, which is probably related to an upcoming movie coming up this year where Captain America will presumably fight off against Doctor Doom, so I'm sure the higher-ups probably influenced that a little bit, but I don't know. I thought this was an interesting book when I read it, and I haven't seen much people talk about it. Zdarsky's kind of trying to angle himself to be like the Bendis of Marvel right now, and I think looking at where they're trying to push that from and how this storyline deals with the US and military and Liberia as like a sovereign nation, I thought it would be an interesting conversation topic, if nothing else.
It really is. It's funny because one of the few Cap books that I have is Man Out of Time, which I think was the origin update before this one. That put him in, 2000s, 2010s, whatever. And so this one, 9/11 is very prominent within the background of the story, and like War on Terror and all that stuff is a major element of it. So that was kind of funny because I guess one thing I'm curious about, and Steve has read every Captain America book, so he would know, is the thought that entered my head with this is the take on the War on Terror completely different now than Cap's like general attitude toward it while it was the hot button current event thing?
You mean like relative to what books were being published around 2001, 2, and 3? Like, is it different than that?
Yeah, like how markedly different is like this book's commentary on 9/11 and the War on Terror to Captain America books from the early 2000s up until, let's say, 05?
So 05 is when Brubaker takes over, so the book becomes a very different thing at that point. But before 05, it's different only because the Captain America book at that point wasn't dealing with a lot of like overt Captain America's relationship to the government stuff in that way. Believe it or not, that was more of what Iron Man was doing because he was the Secretary of State for George Bush. So there was a very different dynamic at that point. So I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, there was that whole era where Iron Man was just hanging out with George Bush. But the Captain America book between like 2000 to 2005 was a lot more like stock superhero stuff. It was still kind of dealing with the ramifications of everything that happened with Heroes Reborn and Steve's developing relationship with Sharon Carter, which like they broke up before that and they got back together at that point. And there was a lot of continuity shit that was happening that the book wasn't really dealing with politics in the same way as far as I remember. Mark Waid wrote a bunch of those issues, and his sympathies kind of just go with whatever the Democrats were saying at the time, that's what he thinks. So a lot of those early 2000s Marvel books, but a lot of Mark Waid stuff specifically, is always just like, the war is an unfortunate side effect of living in the world, and we're going to support the troops, and yada, 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 yada. There wasn't a whole lot of thought behind it, just because there wasn't a whole lot of thought behind it with a lot of comics in that range.
Mm-hmm.
05 is when some of that changes, though, because Brubaker has Captain America take on an ex-Soviet guy who ends up being an oil tycoon, and there's a little bit more commentary about like the surveillance state with how it pertains to the US, and all the Bucky brainwashing stuff happens at that point. So they actually deal more with 9/11 related politics the further we get away from 2001, 2, and 3. But in the moment, Cap was just so continuity heavy that it just wasn't doing much with that stuff.
Okay, because I was curious, like I remember seeing the Marvel writers of the time talk about it a little bit, and they're like, they were saying that we should be going back to what we were doing in the 40s and like having the superheroes fight the enemy that the soldiers were fighting. And it's just we've just moved beyond that, was kind of the excuse at the time. I think part of it was just it's not exactly a great look to just punch brown people on panel over and over and over.
Correct.
Frank Miller kind of provided the explanation for why.
Well, and especially because Marvel comes about in response to counterculture anti-war movements in the 60s and 70s. So many of their characters are founded in Vietnam bad. So it'd be really weird if they were the company who's like, let's punch out Saddam Hussein.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It was just, that was like the predominant thought I had with this as we got into, Colton was his name? The new Captain America?
David, yeah.
Major Colton, Captain America's story and stuff. Like, so as that just kept going on and you see him like become completely disillusioned with the American military industrial complex and just realize my favorite line in the fucking book is just, we're the bad guy. We're the baddies. It's so good. So yeah, when we got to that point, I was into it a little bit more than I guess I thought I'd be. But I don't know. Captain America is one of those characters who, I guess, the more that I've tried to broaden and deepen my understanding of politics, Captain America kind of comes off to me as like the most apologetic liberal, but ultimately still keeps like siding with every like bad trend. But maybe that's just me. Cool.
No, I feel you on that. It's definitely where, like, again, like, he's written by American comic book writers 99% of the time, and sometimes they can have something to say with them, but a lot of the times it's always going to kind of default onto, but the dream. And from my perspective, I like Cap, but I like Cap kind of as like almost like a tragedy of like, yeah, he's a good guy, but like he's kind of inherently as doomed to America as he ever will be, and like no matter what happens and no matter how far or no matter what nomad, like, I'm quitting, I'm not on the stage.
He's quit so many fucking times.
Exactly. He's seen the president shoot himself in the head and he's back. So like every single time it happens, especially like again like a Captain America book in 2025 2026 is a very different conversation than it was in the 1940s. I think that the writers can't help but address it because you kind of have to, but at the same time, it feels like the character's in this perpetual kind of humiliation ritual where he's always being humbled or proved wrong, and I find that interesting, but it definitely isn't a very inspiring character to me. He feels a lot more kind of just like this perpetual, like, oh, Steve, like, where I feel so bad for you.
Yeah, I think that's why I like the character so much. Like, Captain America is one of my favorite superheroes. He's one of my favorite Marvel characters. A big part of that, though, is the humiliation ritual, and because the more you read about the world and history, and the more you start to like think about art forms in political contexts, the more Captain America just sort of feels like full mask off superhero character compared to others. Like I think one reason I like Captain America more than Superman is I think Captain America books are at least honest about what they are in a way I think Superman books usually aren't, because Captain America is just wearing the flag, and the books are unabashedly about here is an idea of what American liberals think superheroes are supposed to be, and by extension what America should be, in a way that Superman books are also always doing, but they're always kind of skirting around the fact that they're doing that. So I like that about the books, because the politics are so half-assed most of the time, but because they're so half-assed and they're so overt, it makes the message a little bit more honest and a little bit more interesting. I didn't love this arc. I thought it was fine. It was probably the best thing Chip Zdarsky has written in a while, but it does the thing that I think a lot of Captain America books do and a lot of superhero books do, which is no matter what critique or idea it has about America and American ideals and the idea of Captain America, it's always walking it back to the most palatable, safe position possible. And it can never really commit to any one thing without turning it into some idealistic gesturing about what America should or shouldn't be. I thought I thought so much of the book had like really interesting setups for different contexts to find Captain America in. Like he comes out of the ice and immediately he decides he needs to go back into the army because he's only been gone for a week as far as he's concerned, which is interesting. And then immediately he gets sent on a mission, and you don't really explore that decision with any sort of detail or anything like that. Then he goes to the mission, and it's a covert modern Black Ops mission in Latveria. Okay, cool. Second they land, it immediately just becomes Captain America versus Doctor Doom. Okay, cool. Second they talk, it's just Captain America superhero fight. And then second that's over, it's Captain America versus evil Captain America. There are so many like clear moments of change for him throughout this story, and none of them get more than like a line of dialogue to explain the emotional reasoning behind the decision. And every single time it's just like Chip really does not want to deal with the ramifications of any of the decisions he's making. He's just speeding us along to the next one. Because if you stop at any one point and start poking in on this idea of like, what would it mean for Captain America to think of himself just as an army soldier? What would it mean for Captain America to agree to being a Black Ops soldier? What would it mean for Captain America to be faced with Doctor Doom and the possibility that Doom is on the right side of history and America's not? Anytime he gets close to that, he just immediately backpedals it into a more basic superhero thing, and that's what I really struggled with this. Where I feel like he doesn't really let any of the tensions in the character that are inherently interesting linger, because he's always trying to walk it back to being a superhero comic.
That's kind of the thing I had, even with like some moments here, kind of hitting for me. I think Colton is the most interesting character in this, but I find it funny that Colton's number one, Doom is probably number two in this, and then Cap's maybe a distant third at best. Kind of maybe a little bit more fascinated by like the Latvian resistance leader.
Yeah, he was cool.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that, man. Give me the fucking Latvian Civil War book, man. Holy shit.
Seriously.
Like, Cap's fine in this, but I will say, like, to compare it to what it is the most modern update of, how many of these have there been now, Steve, where we brought Cap back into the modern day again? It's like, are we at 5? We've become incredibly efficient at it.
It's probably about 4 or 5, yeah. I mean, it gets a little sticky because the story itself doesn't get redone very often, but the subsequent runs will allude to it being different even though it has not been depicted. So, like, for example, if you're reading old, like, 70s Avengers comics, they still think of it as the 40s origin. But then, like, you get into the Steve Englehart run, and they do flashbacks, and it's a completely different story than you remember. And there's a lot of that, where they don't do this specific thing of Captain America just got out of the ice super often, but they change the context of him being out of the ice as a retcon pretty frequently.
Okay. Because, like, I could think of three. This one, Man Out of Time, and the original. Like, we're bringing Cap back to the modern comics stuff. So, I'm assuming there was probably one or two more in there.
Yeah, I mean, Brubaker changes it at one point. Don't think Remender does, but he might. I think Dan Jurgens changes it at one point. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them.
Yeah. So how did we feel about Colton though? Because he was the one that I had the most interest in, as he becomes just completely disillusioned with the American ideal, in like that from someone experiencing that post 9/11 trauma and kind of falling hook, line, and sinker into the government propaganda generated from it, into just realizing, what the fuck are we doing? There's no reason to be here.
What I liked about that. So
how did we feel about Tom King, the Captain America character?
Yeah, no, I was literally. Because what was so crazy is when I opened this book, when I read it for the first time, which was, I think, like, it was like earlier, like last year, the page 9/11 hit me. I was like, the wrong book? Is this fucking Tom King Wonder Woman? Like, what am I reading? It's like, oh no, it is actually, it's just nasty. But like the page 9/11 turn, it absolutely flew. I couldn't help but laugh. I was like, oh, we're immediate 9/11. And I was like, you fucking Americans, man. It's been so many fucking years, get over it.
Like, honestly, yes. Honestly, yes.
But like we go to that, and then immediately I was like, okay, but once you actually read it and you get on board with it, I thought it was a really interesting idea to basically repeat the Captain American origin beats and just push it to what would happen if you did it in the 2000s. And this dude is in the Captain American costume, but it's all in tan and it's all paramilitary, and he's got like goggles and the visor, and they view the shield as like, there's like a point, like he can't get it to fucking ricochet and do the trick shots. He just got a big shield to either block gunfire or throw it once, and then they've got the shield. Like all the flash, all the superheroism of it all, I guess, like the illusion of pageantry of it is gone. And early on, when he's young and he goes out there for the first time, he's just like, oh, this was so easy, we handled this, like, this is great. And over time you get to see, like, bit by bit, he just gets more tired and disillusioned because it's never ending, and he's feeling like a pawn, and there's none of that. They make a big point in here with Steve, like the Adolf comparison, that they compare to Doom to Adolf, and Steve's trying to find that, like, that focus point for all of his anger. And with Colton, they don't necessarily focus on one individual. They don't like say, oh, I really want to get Osama bin Laden or anything like that. But they have this kind of lack of a target, the lack of a rallying force where I can be this hero, I can be this symbol. And so you're left with a man who has a lot of power and a lot of, like, pent up justice, for lack of a better term, and nowhere for it to go. There's no resolution, there is no happy ending, there is no solution to this that can be solved by a guy in body armor who's really strong. Like, it's just not how that's going to work. And I thought the idea of showing how Captain America in World War II is viewed as this ultimate propaganda tool, is viewed as this great, like, hero that once he's gone, his legend is lived out forever, and even other nations all have statues of Captain America and Bucky. But Colton, by the end of it, they're like, all right, we can never talk about you again. Like, you must always either go in jungle missions or in the dead of night. I will still hire you, but, like, you can never be public again because of how this ended. And I thought that was a really interesting, not necessarily takedown, but kind of a sombering look at how far our views have changed. To, if you try to say Captain America never existed and you try to make a character like Captain America who would just be Colton, everyone would look at him as a parody. They'd look at him as like a Homelander type. This is a villain. Like, you can't just call yourself Captain America and go to a foreign country and try to win a war. But because Steve's already indoctrinated to us, like, Steve's already, like, part of the culture, we just accept it. And I thought that was really interesting.
I was not a fan of Colton. I think on the surface, what bothers me about it is like this is the 400th time we've done this. This is like the 400th time we have done what if Captain America, but it's not World War II and things are not all through rose tinted glasses. That's what Nuke is. That's what they did with Nick Fury when Captain America came out of the ice. That's what US Agent is. That like we've done this so many times that the concept itself doesn't feel very novel to me. And updating it to 9/11 can be interesting, but I think what's important to remember is that Chip Zdarsky's Canadian. He's not American, he's Canadian. And I think his portrayal of a guy being radicalized by 9/11 feels very disingenuous. It feels like it's being written by a guy that understood in the moment this was bad and was on the right side of that historically. And he fails to write a character that you as an audience can sympathize with why he's doing this in the first place in an honest way, in a way that makes you uncomfortable. I think the troubling thing about 9/11 and being American is like there is a lot of emotional baggage wrapped up even for people who are left leaning about that happening. Like if you had family in New York, if you lived in New York, if you grew up with one set of ideas about what America was versus another. Like 9/11 is a monumental moment for a lot of people's political awakening. And even if you're as left leaning as possible, you can still look at that moment and be like, I understand why some people saw that and became military zealots. And I think the problem with Colton is that Zdarsky's never really doing a good enough job of making me earnestly side with him. There's an offhanded line about his brother dying. There is some dialogue about his relationship with his mother deteriorating. But the amount of time we spend with this guy absorbing the tragedy, thinking about the tragedy, deteriorating his social relationships because of it, the things that are motivating him outside of his introduction scene, I think all of that is so limited and so sparse that I never feel like Chip does the work to make me care about why Colton's doing this, even if I disagree with him. And I think that's part of the problem with his whole writing style, which is everything that Chip writes reads like an outline to me. It reads like I am writing all of these beats in a structured order so you understand where the story is going. There is no flaw in how it is structured. There is no flaw in the direction of the characters. But I am spending no time in between those beats allowing those emotions to come out naturally. I am just progressing from beat to beat to beat to beat. And I feel like Colton being introduced as this inverse mirror of Captain America, it's stale on its face because we've done this so many times, but then you don't do any of the real work to make the 9/11 backstory, to make the super soldier experimentation that turns him into Major America, I guess.
Major America.
To really, yeah, because he's a major. They say he's a major. He's Major America. They don't do anywhere near enough for me to care about this guy. It's all just critique, and this is why I feel like it feels disingenuous. This is a guy who was against the war on terror, writing a villain who got radicalized by 9/11, who then becomes the villain of the book, but it's tragic because America's the real villain. But he never believes in his heart, that he never makes the audience believe that the character is doing the right thing. And I think that's just fundamentally poor writing, because you don't have to agree with your character, but you got to make me feel for him, and I never do.
I'm seeing where you're coming from, but I don't know. I guess Colton just worked for me in a way because I certainly, growing up, I bought into a lot of that to an extent. I mean, I don't know exactly when it happened. I remember by 04, I was pretty anti-Bush, but I was like 13 or 14. I think I might have just been the popular thing to do at that point. But at the same time, fucking 9/11 and the response to it was such like a rallying point for the political history of the country. Outside of World War II, I think you would be hard pressed to find a more unifying political moment in American history than the immediate aftermath of 9/11. But then it kind of getting utilized and squandered. It's interesting how like a lot of the conspiracy theories around 9/11 talk about it as this inside job or false flag attack or whatever. And I'm like, I don't think you need that. There's enough people that like hate America for a good reason that any government could just utilize an attack for propaganda purposes and then use that as an excuse to carry out its own agendas. Um, and I think that's just in retrospect what we saw, and it's not like no one saw it coming. There are plenty of people there in the moment saying that this was happening and that it was, I remember protests and in the early aughts and people holding signs, no blood for oil, blah blah blah. So like it was well established what was going on, but I do remember just that feeling of unity getting kind of capitalized on, and people getting disillusioned pretty quickly. So I guess I just kind of carrying that experience in, since I'm a bit older than you, Steve, and a lot older than Alfie. I just remember I have enough memory of that time period that like Colton's experience is kind of there. And, everyone loves. I joked about it earlier, but Colton is like Tom King becomes a Captain America character, because like that's Tom King's whole fucking thing, right? It's like, oh, 9/11 happened and I felt the need to serve my country, so I joined the CIA, and then I just realized very quickly that what I joined for was not what we were actually doing. But I was already there, so here we are. Um,
I think what kind of bothers me about Colton is I think what Chip's trying to say with Colton is overpowering what Colton should be as a character in the story. Like, that trajectory is fine. I don't disagree with that. That's fine. You can make your story about him joining and being disillusioned, but I don't like that the way the story frames him, that trajectory overpowers our ability as an audience member to in the moment feel like I understand why he did it. I agree with him. I don't like agreeing with him, but I get it. Like, the backstory about his brother dying just being a line of dialogue bothered me so much. I'm like, this is a massive motivating factor for this guy, and you just don't explore it at all. There is no chance to sympathize him with him over this fact. Never mind the fact that you have to like establish a timeline of when could this possibly have happened. But like the fact that there's just a adamant refusal from Chip to make me feel like I sympathize with Colton in a way that isn't immediately being wrapped into what the story is ultimately gonna say at the end really bothers me, just as a practice of writing. Like, you can make this character tragic and make that turn, but you can't deny the character's ability to have these emotions in the moment and then just telegraph to your audience what the conclusion is going to be without giving them an opportunity to sympathize with them.
Alfie, what do you think about Colton?
I agree with you, Ian, in terms of the sense of, like, I do think he is an interesting idea, and even though we've done this take on the Captain America goes bad angle a lot, I do think it's a well that hasn't really run dry yet, at least for me. I still think it's okay to keep dipping into that, because it is such a... You can change it almost by the year, I feel. Like, 2027's version of that story, I think, would even be different than, like, I feel like that's one that, in the same way that people keep making kind of evil Hulks, I feel like there's something to just that idea of like power and symbols and misplaced them in different eras. But I also completely agree with the overall point Steve is making of just this book just does not sit with anything. Like, nothing is given time to breathe here and develop. And there's a lot of really interesting ideas, which is like why I wanted to talk about it. But it's frustrating because you get to the end of one issue and I'm like, this could be twice as long, man. Like, there's so much to delve into with just the interworkings of, like, how does Captain America perform a Black Ops mission and without being detected? He's still got a symbol on, so, like, they're prepping, like, if Captain America gets found and he's still fresh on the ice, is there going to be an international calling? Because the first place he goes into this, from what we understand, because it's early days Marvel, still a relatively new leadership in Latveria. How does that inform things? And then the American reveal of like, hey, the Americans how Doom acquire is like, okay, can we maybe see that? Because that's new. That sounds interesting. Like, what was that conversation like? Did he just like roll up and was like, hey, I'd really like to take over this country. Can y'all can y'all give me an assist? My name's Victor Von Doom, but I promise I won't backstab you guys.
Yeah, I want to talk about
Like,
Doom more in a minute
what was
too.
that? I want to see it. It's like all the shit they said Robot Chicken sketch where they say Dr. Doom about all the UN meetings and he just keeps pushing the motion to like make the world bow to Doom and everyone votes and he just sits back down. Like, I want to see shit. I want to see the political fucking like angle when he's in his full get up. But then the stuff with Steve and like coming out of the ice and like you said, Steve. There's too many Steves in this goddamn thing. But non-Captain America Steve was talking about how Colin's brother, like again, if we could just spend more time there, if we could see more incidents, I think you could have had something really, really special. Because I think the pitch is sound. If you would come up to me with this pitch, like this is the Captain America book, these are the topics I want to cover. I'm like, fuck yeah, this is a great idea. This is a great angle to explore. We can do this. It just feels like they were trying to spin this by. And even the fact that it's 5 issues instead of the standard 6 issues is kind of interesting to me because it's like normally for superhero trade arcs they go with 6, so you can get 2 arcs in a trade, maybe for an annual in there, right? And I know Marvel has gotten a little stingier in recent years where they have lowered the amount of issues per trade, so maybe that's because of it. Maybe Zdarsky was like, hey, this is going to be 5 issues no matter what I do, so I better wrap it up quicker. If that's the case, it's not on him necessarily, it's more so the company, but either way, I just wish it got to breathe a little bit more, is my overarching point.
Mm-hmm. No, I could agree with that. There is just a lot of this. It's interesting because there is so much happening, but I'm not sure what you cut in order to give something else more time. I guess maybe the stuff with the Resistance contact, or maybe some of the stuff around like the Doombot, but at the same time, just Victor Von Doom looking at not even at Cap, he's looking at the reader and he goes, Hitler was elected. I took power.
Oh god. Oh god. The page, I just want to take a moment. I love how fucking Doom is written in this. He's got some fucking bangers.
Excellent, yeah.
You could tell the itch was like, yeah, I guess I'll do a Captain America book, but he's going to Latveria. Like, the fact that it's so much Doom focus, it feels like every single writer in Marvel, he's maybe the most consistent. Almost everyone, no matter how good the rest of their work is, can write a pretty good Doctor Doom. I think he's just got such a distinct voice, and here especially, where he's just dropping out like, allow me to show you how a benevolent nation handles its affairs, as he's walking them to an executioner platform. Like, it's fucking great.
How did you feel?
Doom is top tier.
Yeah. Alfie, how did you feel as the Doom fan of the idea that America helped Doom take over Latveria? Do you think that like diminishes him in any way?
It does, in terms of there's a lot to be said about like the first thing he did after putting on that iron mask and like proclaiming himself was go back to his homeland, and it's meant to be this like heroic end of the story arc, right? And he does this giant thing all by himself. It's the test of his new powers and his inventions and everything, and he sits on that throne for the first time. And then the announcement happens. Reed Richards declares himself Mr. Fantastic, the Fantastic, and it means nothing. So this great moment of him finally achieving the throne is completely belittled because Reed Richards is the smartest man in the world. He can't handle that. Like, I really love that moment. I really love that, what that says about how kind of where his priorities are, where he is a benevolent leader to an extent, as much as a dictator could be, but it's always going to be secondary to his own ego and his own pride with Reed. But that being said, I'm open to the idea if it led to some interesting conflict, and I think it could have. This doesn't really do much with it aside from a line at the end of Steve, and I believe it's meant to be more so like a setup for the rest of the run, because for context, after this arc, the run goes to modern day where Doctor Doom is dead and Thaddeus Ross is trying to occupy Latveria, and Steve has to come in and try and like fight off the US. So it's like a direct sequel to this arc. Um but in the context of that, it feels more like backstory than necessarily something that could have been done to enrich his character. Because I really like the scenes, like I was saying earlier, where we get to see him in a political setting, because that's what something that, especially in recent years, as we keep trying to build up to like a new Thanos, he's just kind of fighting everyone. He's just kind of like being like a big, strong, like evil boss guy. I really liked a lot of the older Doctor Doom stories where he is more of a Machiavellian figure, where yes, he can fight, but he's not really interested in doing it. There's more like a Palpatine political edge to him, and I would have liked some more scenes with that. I would have liked in the conversation with Captain America where maybe they have more of a debate about how do you run a state, how do you represent your country, how do you become a symbol for your people, and there's stuff paid to it here, but Steve is more so interested in using that to take him down than to actually try and like sway his opinion. And I think that would have been a more interesting use of the time. But inherently, it's not my favorite idea in the world, but it's also because the book doesn't really spend too much time on it, it's not something to get hung up on.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at the pages for this. Victor Von Doom and the nation of Latveria welcome you as a hero. It's just so...
As a hero. Like, yeah. The scourge of Adolf Hitler, Captain America. You are an inspiration to me as a boy. I like to get that. Because that's a big thing as well with Doom, is there's like a time travel story where he literally goes back and he like is thinking of killing Hitler because he's like right in front of him, and he's like, "Ah, bah! If only the temporal causality would allow me to ride you into the dirt." Like he's very anti-Nazi, which is funny, but it makes sense from his background.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like some good bits in here. I like the conversation around authoritarianism as like the mask drops from America under the Trump administration, and we realize we are living in a much more authoritarian state. And like just Cap not really, like he's got the excuse of, oh, well, I'm not used to this new time. It's like, yeah, fucking good for you, good one. Convenient, isn't it? Just like this fucking panel with Victor in front of the American flag. Your country, hold on. You've awakened to a new world, Captain. Freedom, democracy. Your country uses these words that you made golden and perfect all those decades ago. They use them to cover their atrocities and their cold grip on the world. America is now the enemy. Is he right, Buck? Am I a fool falling back in line? Just like, this is a great fucking scene. Just, again, playing with those ideas of disillusionment, of, American empire. I particularly like that in context with the scene earlier between Colton and Steve, of like, this is how the world works now. We have bases all over us so that whenever there's a threat, we can respond. And it's like, that's what's sold, but that I particularly like from the other perspective of the bases are containment. The bases are the threat. And I don't know, just fascinating shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I liked that stuff more, because it feels so flimsy to me, because it's the kind of stuff that Captain America comics do a lot, where they gesture at the things that people don't like about the country now, and they make Captain America feel disdain for the world that he has woken up into because things were always better in the 1940s. And very few Captain America writers actually go back and say, like, actually, Captain America's 1940s were not so rosy. It was pretty fucked up.
I thought it was interesting because they pay it lip service at the very least. Like, the world I came from had a lot of problems.
That's sort of my... Yeah, I mean, that's sort of my point, is I feel like everything that Cap is greeted with as part of the problems of the new world, in this they all just feel like lip service-y things to make him kind of fall on the right side of these issues. They never feel like they're never like questioning his resolve, because he's looking for a reason to keep going this entire time. He's got that line in the second issue or the first issue at some point, where he compares himself to Doctor Doom and he thinks about his costume as his own version of a suit of armor. But Chip does this thing where, like, every time a character has an interesting sort of thematic tension that the story can naturally tease out, he just has the character say it verbatim and then never revisits it with any sort of dramatic pathos whatsoever. And I feel like every time Captain America gets these moments where he's confronted with, here's what the problems of America are now, doesn't this bother you? I feel like he just never does anything about them. He never says anything. He never, like, until you get the Thunderbolt Ross at the end, he gets his opinions of America thrown at him, and then never has any sort of conversation or tension. I think the big problem with his conversation with Doom, I think, is like, Doom is great. Doom's dialogue is 10 out of 10 top tier. He's the best part of the book. But in those conversations, it's like Doom is being Doom, and Steve is just looking for a reason not to trust him instead of engaging with anything he actually says.
Yeah.
I would tend to
And I understand. Man in giant Darth Vader green edition. Maybe you don't want to hear him out, but
If Hal Jordan can hear out Sinestro, I think we can hear out Von Doom.
I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. But I think that's maybe the angle they're coming at. But like, it's just a less interesting choice, is what it comes down to, right? Like, it's just Captain America fresh out the ice. He's met the Avengers. He's seen the world a little bit. He's seen the Fantastic Four. Now he leaves America. And we've done stories where he interacts with Black Panther, which are always interesting as well. But I like when Captain America when he gets to meet rulers specifically, people that represent completely different nations. Yeah. And Doom is a good choice because he's the one that maybe is in the most antagonistic relationship with America as consistently, without there is a small. It's not as big of an aspect as race as like Wakanda would be. Let me put it that way, right? Like the beef between the small European nation of Latveria and America is a very different situation, and it's a lot more of this is a potential partner. This is someone that we don't necessarily want to piss off, but we don't really understand who they are either. So I think that leads to neutral ground a lot of the times with stories, and because of that, I think you can have a Steve Rogers argue back at Doom in a way where you necessarily couldn't have Steve Rogers argue back at T'Challa without it coming off as kind of ridiculous and gross. He can snap back at Doom and you can get him to be a little bit more stagnant in his opinions, a little bit more forthcoming, but you just still have a dialogue there. And they open it up with like when Steve goes to a different nation, he likes to sit and he likes to listen. And I think he gets plenty of that when he does the tour, but there should still come a point where let's exchange our ideas, let's hash this out, instead of immediately coming to, like you said, the superhero brawl. And it's like, it's an okay superhero brawl. I like Captain America feeling outmatched and having to outsmart his way for the victory, like taking out the mask and Doom just being ashamed by that to get the hit. And that's a smart move. I like that sequence, but it's something we've seen a lot of the times, whereas I can't recall Captain America and Dr. Doom ever having a political debate as something that's ever happened, and that would have been a more interesting story to see, especially in this era right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's annoying about this book for me is like, there's a lot of stuff about it that feels like it's good, that feels like it's interesting. It's got enough material to be an entire run just based off of these 5 issues. But every time we get to something that like feels like it's the kernel of a good idea, it's like it just moves beyond it too quickly, or that it's kind of just cliff noting you to arrive at the conclusion Chip Zdarsky wants you to arrive at. There's a bit that I really, really like where he stops Doom from getting assassinated. I don't like that. I feel like Captain America should have just let him get assassinated. Yeah. That's what he would have done. But I like the bit where he thinks about, what would Bucky do? Oh yeah, Bucky would have just shot his ass. Anyway, moving on.
Bucky just killed him.
I really like that, but it's one of those things where it's almost like a compliment sandwich of like, I don't like how you got here. I like this line of dialogue, but now I don't like the fact that the rest of the book does not address that. Like, you have a Steve who is disillusioned with the world he has woken up in, thinking about the fight that he felt justified in when he was younger in World War II a week ago. He realizes in the moment that the world he woke up in is actually not too different from his own, because his own fucking child partner would have murdered Doctor Doom in cold blood. And then he just never interrogates that feeling. He just never spends any time with, like, you know what? Maybe I should have just shot Doctor Doom. And it just feels like, why even include that line if you're not going to do anything with it?
I wonder if this book would have been a better read week to week as opposed to in trade.
I did read it week to week. I felt the frustration wasn't apparent until the arc ended.
Okay.
When it ended and then it cut to modern day, I was kind of annoyed. And from what I hear from a lot of people, we had some people in the server who were reading it with me, and just people in general, like it had a strong start. I think everyone got kind of like frustrated and dropped the book after the time jump, just because we kind of thought this was going to be more of like a layered, more interesting, like at least like 12 issues or something like that. Like.
So you're saying that like the Marvel book was good for about 5 to 6 issues, and then it fell off super hard?
That's what we're saying, man.
Weird. Sorry. I can't help myself. It's like sitting there.
Oh, it's good. That's why I thought of you when I got to that point. I was like, man, they just cannot keep validating this motherfucker like, every time. Do y'all not listen to this podcast? This is why New York offices are closing down and you're moving out here to do webtoons, because you're not listening to Ian.
Yeah, I don't know.
I will say, one thing I will give it credit for is a lot of the modern comic book issues feel like they read too quick. This did not. This felt like every issue was packing stuff in. Now, that is to the detriment of the idea of like doing too much, but like, man, it took me an hour to read 5 issues. That's reasonable. That's what it should take me to read 5 issues. But you read a lot of modern comics, and it's like you can fly through a whole 22-page comic in like 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Not even, like literally less than 10 minutes. An issue of Batman will take you less than 10 minutes to read. So I like that this took me actual time.
No, I would agree. This had a little bit more meat to it, and again, like even if it feels like a first draft, I'm beginning to think that's what most of these Marvel comics are anymore. Is like just get the idea out there, get it on the page, give the studio something it can work with, and then it'll get adapted or reworked for the screen. And we'll put it on screen in a couple years.
That's depressing.
But like
I would not be surprised.
The pipeline's there, man.
It is. You're right. It's just
they've said as much. Like they've said it quite blatantly. Like, hey, this is what we do now.
Yeah. And that's to its detriment and also to some benefit, because there is a strength in adaptation of you get to kind of like sit with something and find out what worked, what didn't, improve and tweak it. And so usually when an adaptation comes out and is bad, something has gone disastrously wrong, because you have so many advantages to reap in choosing what to keep in an adaptation that when you just completely miss the mark, that's really depressing. So I don't know. I just thought about the week to week thing of this, because like, yeah, if you were sitting there just reading the ideas and like looking at this, introspective thing, especially with the way that some of these issues end, like, oh, we've got only 2 hostages survive. Oh, okay, fucking stabs one of them. Like, holy shit, that was a good scene. I wanted to backtrack a little bit to talk about that within the context of Doom, because I didn't actually mind the idea of America helping support Doom taking over, because that's just such a I don't see it like as a detriment to Doom. I just see it as just such a typical American thing at this point.
Sure, yeah.
I talked about this a couple months back when I was reading one of my books on Mao, and it's just such a funny image that you've just got Mao Zedong sitting there in a photograph with like an American military official, and I'm like, God, he was just one of those guys. Like, it doesn't degrade him and what his accomplishments were, but it's just another guy that America helped support and fund for a little while, in service of, quote unquote, taking out one enemy, only for him to become a much bigger problem for them, for us, like, years later. It's just, I don't know, fucking fascinating to me. So, like, I would kind of put Doom being just another one in that line of, like, it doesn't necessarily degrade him, but it does say a lot about just how short-sighted American foreign policy can be. Of just, yeah, we'll get this guy in power, and we'll probably be able to control him, or if not, we'll just take him out like we just did. And it's like, yeah, but, like, that's a terrible fucking strategy of just, countries aren't fucking video games where you just keep resetting until you get, like, the right run. The history of this shit builds, and so I thought that just worked really well within the context of it. But also, I like that Doom was holding up his end of the bargain by killing all of the American hostages anyway, but they just didn't trust him to do it.
Yeah. All that stuff was good. One thing I do want to mention, because we haven't mentioned it here before we wrap up, is the art here. Let me just make sure I'm pronouncing this correctly.
It does look like shitty.
Valerio shit. Yeah, that is the name. His art is quite nice for a lot of this, in terms of, like, it's not like blowing me away, but it's like kind of like the better version of kind of the Marvel house style at this point. But one thing that I do really like is I fucking love how he draws Doom. When he draws him in, like, the shadows as, like, this fucking, like, eldritch, like, ghost of the forest, and, like, the winter snow is coming down, it's like, that stuff's fantastic. Like, he looks really, really like his most, like, Dracula core, in terms of just, like, how the shadows hide his mask, and that panel you talked about, Ian, where it's like Hitler was elected. Like, his expression there is, but even though the mask is static, the expression is perfect. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to give facial expressions on artists, I think, as well gets lost in the shuffle a lot of the time between splash pages. Of, like, how well can your characters emote? And I think the emotions here are actually pretty strong. I think that's the greatest part of the art here is it does lend to the story feeling like it has something more to say, that there is something where you have to read facial expressions rather than just seeing the action beats. Like, characters are acting here, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm. And again, like, you talk about the art and the execution scene really stands out to me. And again, I just the expressions you get from Doom are really good, with just the disdain. And again, the dialogue from Doom is fantastic here. They want democracy, a country where fools and philosophers have equal say, so nothing ever changes. Ah!
So good.
And it's just like the disdainful, like, looking down at Wolf and just mocking him. It's like, it's your rebellious bravado and stuff. Just he is really well done in this.
Simply a blow to your masculinity. It's crazy. Like, the face on that is fantastic.
Yeah, so just disrespectful, but I like. It's great. Just good shit all around. I love it. Yeah, and then the Cap fight itself does look really good. It is a bit maybe disappointing that Doom has to so handily lose the fight, but at the same time, it is superhero comics, so you kind of expect it at this point. But Doom
Yeah,
losing
I think-
that early on into ruling is something. I don't know how to feel about that one. Just looking through the art, I like the kind of sepia yellow tone that they do for a lot of Colton's flashbacks as well. It's just got a cool vibe to it for doing flashback stuff. I don't know.
Makes it feel more like a Tom King book, because honestly, those flashbacks, they feel like how those are colored,
Yeah,
which is funny.
It's very Sheriff of Babylon,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm telling you,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Colton is just Zdarsky making Tom King a Captain America character. It's just what I feel I'm reading here. Everything about it. You could just take some of these panels and put them in a King book, and I wouldn't blink twice. It's missing someone just sitting there saying a really odd phrase over and over again. But hey, it can't copy the master in all the ways. All right. I think we're about done on this one, unless anyone had any final thoughts they wanted to get out on the book.
Well, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with this. I'm satisfied with what we got out of this. So for just 5 issues, I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. Well, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Until next time. Or no, shit, ratings. Fuck. I'll give this, I think, 3 out of 5 9/11s.
3.5 9/11s.
I said 3 out of 5, not 3.5.
A 3 out of 5 9/11s.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use 3 out of 5 Doctor Doom proclaiming the flaws of America as an American flag waves in the background dramatically. I fucking love that panel. The ones that you made golden, they have sullied.
I will give it 2.5 out of 5 Bucky dolls. I mean action figures.
Yeah, these dolls. They're called action figures.
I like that he got the Bucky doll at the end. That made me happy.
Yeah, that was for you. He wrote that for you. He's like, Steve's gonna give me a lower star if I don't put this in here.
The Bucky doll made me very happy. It's true. It's true.
Reed's whole I can change my face and go, nah, I'm just some guy is pretty good too.
That's so good. I like that too. He gets the FF characters, if nothing else.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I am the champion of the oppressed.
And I am the Luddite.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.